A warm late afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon as Steven Seagal pulled his motorcycle into the dusty parking lot of a small roadside diner. It was the kind of quiet, forgotten place where truckers stopped for coffee and families paused during long road trips. Steven, dressed simply in a fitted black t-shirt, faded jeans, and a worn leather jacket, looked like any regular traveler passing through, not like the martial arts legend millions admired on screen. As he shut off the engine, the low rumble faded into the background noise of laughter and loud music coming from a group of bikers gathered outside the diner. There were 5 of them, heavy boots, sleeveless leather vests, bandanas, and rough attitudes that demanded attention. They were blocking the walkway, leaning on their bikes, drinking sodas, and sizing up anyone who got too close. Their presence alone made families hesitate before walking inside. Steven, calm as a still lake, stepped off his bike and headed toward the diner door. He didn't stare, didn't react, just walked past like it was any other day. But one biker, a tall muscular guy with messy blonde hair and a skull-printed vest, locked eyes with him. Something about Steven's quiet confidence rubbed the man the wrong way. "Hey," the biker muttered under his breath. "Look who thinks he can walk by without saying something." Steven pretended not to hear and pushed open the diner door. Inside, the air smelled of coffee, pancakes, and old jukebox records. Steven ate quietly, paid his bill, and stepped back outside, hoping to continue his ride without trouble. But the bikers were still there, louder now, rowdier, and apparently bored enough to look for a target. As Steven walked toward his motorcycle, blonde biker stepped right into his path. "Where do you think you're going, old man?" he growled, grabbing a fistful of Steven's t-shirt. Steven stayed perfectly still. No anger, no fear. "I'm leaving," he said calmly. "Let go of my shirt." The biker smirked, looked at his friends, and with one sharp jerk, ripped Steven Seagal's shirt down the chest, tearing the fabric apart like it meant nothing. Gasps filled the air. Someone whispered, "Oh man, he messed up." What Steven did next shocked every single person standing there. The moment Steven's shirt tore open, the air changed. The laughter from the biker gang echoed through the parking lot, bouncing off the metal walls of the diner. A few people stepped out just in time to witness the scene, and within seconds, mobile phones were raised, recording, watching, waiting for whatever came next. Steven didn't react the way the bikers expected. No anger flashed across his face, no panic, no rush to retaliate. He just looked down at the torn shirt hanging loosely from his shoulders. The fabric fluttered in the warm breeze, revealing the strong, calm presence underneath, like a storm waiting to form but holding itself back. Blonde biker took Steven's silence as weakness. "What's the matter?" he taunted loudly. "Cat got your tongue? Or you scared?" His friends burst into another wave of laughter, hyped by his aggression. One of them whistled mockingly, another recorded from just a few feet away. Steven finally lifted his eyes and locked them on the biker. Slow. Steady. No emotion. "You shouldn't have done that," he said. The biker stepped closer, shoving Steven with his shoulder. "Oh yeah. And what are you gonna do about it?" The shove barely moved Steven, but the disrespect echoed louder than the physical contact. People around them whispered, "Who picks a fight with a man minding his own business? This guy's insane." "Is that Steven Seagal?" "No way. No way he's that stupid." But the bikers didn't care who he was. They didn't even consider the possibility. To them, he was just another quiet stranger they could push around. Blonde biker walked a slow circle around Steven, inspecting him like he was prey. "You walk in here with your fancy bike, actin' all calm," he sneered. "You think you're better than us?" Steven didn't move. "I think you're looking for trouble." "And I found it!" the biker yelled, grabbing Steven's ripped shirt again and jerking him forward. Phones zoomed in. Crowd murmurs grew. Even the biker gang's laughter died down, sensing tension rising from a place they couldn't see. Steven took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. "I said I don't want trouble," he repeated. "But if you keep pushing me, you won't like where this goes." The tone wasn't threatening. It was simply a fact. Blonde biker leaned in, almost nose to nose. "I'm not scared of some old man." From the side, a woman recording whispered, He should be. But the biker ignored everything, every warning, every sign. His friends encouraged him. Come on, man, teach him a lesson. Push him again. Make him hit you. The biker smirked. Oh, I'll push him again. And he did, harder this time. Stephen's boots scraped the pavement, but he still didn't raise a hand. His restraint shocked everyone more than violence ever could. The biker gang's amusement turned into confusion. Why wasn't this man fighting back? Why wasn't he scared? Someone in the crowd said, maybe he knows something they don't. Another whispered, this is about to end badly for that biker. Blonde biker stepped back, puffing his chest, shouting loud enough for the phones to catch every word. Come on, do something. Stephen squared his shoulders just a bit, eyes calm as ice. I will, he said quietly. If you touch me again. The threat was subtle, controlled, and that scared the biker far more than any shouted warning. Engagement break. Have you ever seen someone being bullied or disrespected for no reason? Comment where you're watching this from. Little did everyone know. The biker was just one mistake away from a lesson he would never forget. The parking lot grew still, so still that even the sound of passing traffic faded into the background. Stephen stood like a silent mountain, his torn shirt hanging from his shoulders, fluttering softly each time the desert wind grazed past. But inside him, not even a muscle twitched. His eyes held the kind of calm that either reassures people or terrifies them. The biker who ripped his shirt, blonde biker, paced back and forth arrogantly, trying to maintain control of the situation, but the tension had changed. The earlier laughter from his gang was gone. Their smirks were fading. They sensed something off, something they couldn't name. Blonde biker, however, was too drunk on pride to notice. You think you're some wise old monk, huh? He barked. You think staring at me will scare me? Stephen didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. A few feet away, a family with 2 teenagers stood watching nervously. The mother whispered urgently, we should go inside. This won't end well. But the teenagers refused to move. They were glued to the moment, phones raised, eyes wide, sensing they were witnessing the start of something unforgettable. Around Stephen, more people stepped outside the diner, plates of food in hand, frozen mid-bite as they saw the confrontation. Someone whispered, isn't that really him? Steven Seagal. Another replied, no way. Why would he be here? But even those who didn't recognize him could feel something different in the air, something about the way he stood, the stillness, the control. Blonde biker continued circling Stephen, getting louder with each step. You're on our turf, old man. You don't just walk through our spot like you own the place. A second biker, tall with tattoos snaking across both arms, stepped forward. Bro, just let it go, he muttered, though barely loud enough for anyone to hear. Blonde biker shot him a deadly glare. That biker backed up immediately. Stephen finally spoke, his voice soft but unshakable. This isn't your territory. It's just a parking lot. And I'm just leaving. His tone wasn't confrontational, it was reasonable. Calm. Too calm. Blonde biker clenched his jaw. That attitude is what pisses me off. He leaned in close, pointing a finger inches from Stephen's face. You're talking like you're better than me. Stephen didn't flinch. I'm talking like someone who wants to avoid hurting you. The crowd murmured. Blonde biker laughed, the loud, forced laugh of someone masking fear. You hurt me. Buddy, you're lucky we haven't. He shoved Stephen again, this time with both hands. Stephen stumbled half a step back, his boots sliding against the pavement, but he still didn't react. His eyes, however, sharpened just a little. A flicker, barely perceptible, but enough for the crowd to sense something shifting inside him. That shift made blonde biker hesitate. Just for a moment. But pride wouldn't let him stop. You're scared, blonde biker declared, pointing dramatically for the phone's recording. Look at him tremble. Stephen wasn't trembling. Not even close. Meanwhile, a group of truck drivers stood near their rigs, whispering. This guy's crazy. He has no idea who he's messing with. Why isn't Seagal doing anything yet? He's giving him every chance. Every single chance. A waitress stepped forward, her apron still on. "Sir, maybe you should go back inside," she told Stephen softly. Stephen shook his head. "No. Running away doesn't solve anything." Blonde biker laughed again. "Running away?" He puffed out his chest, stepping even closer. "You really think I'd let you leave after disrespecting me?" Stephen raised an eyebrow. "How did I disrespect you? You walked past me like I wasn't even there." The crowd stared at him, surprised by the childishness of his reasoning. Stephen sighed, deep, controlled, tired. "I don't want any part of this. But you're not giving me a choice." Blonde biker grinned wickedly. "Oh, I'll give you a choice, all right." He turned to his gang. "Block his bike." Two bikers instantly stepped in front of Stephen's motorcycle, crossing their arms, refusing to let him pass. Another swung his leg over the seat, claiming it like a trophy. The disrespect was escalating. Stephen looked at his bike, then at the men blocking it. Slowly, he turned back to Blonde biker. "That's enough," he said quietly. But quiet didn't mean weak. And the biker felt it. A shiver ran visibly up his spine, just for half a second, before he suppressed it with more bravado. "What are you gonna do, huh?" he barked. "Take your shirt off and flex? Teach us some old kung fu moves?" Stephen shook his head. "I'm warning you. Stop this now." The crowd felt the shift. Even the wind seemed to pause. But Blonde biker was too far gone. Too inflated with ego. Too sure that the silent man in front of him was harmless. He jabbed his finger into Stephen's chest, hard. "Make me stop." Stephen's eyes slowly lifted. Their calmness was gone. For the first time, the biker saw something behind them. Strength, precision, control, power, and even a hint of pity. The crowd held its breath. Everyone knew. One more touch, and everything would change. The biker's finger was still pressed against Stephen's chest when a voice suddenly rose from the back of the crowd, shaky, confused, and full of disbelief. "Wait, isn't that Steven Seagal?" The words sliced through the tension like a blade. The crowd rippled with murmurs, heads turning, eyes widening as people began to take a closer look at the quiet man standing in the center of the chaos. A middle-aged woman, still holding her takeout bag, stepped forward. "I've seen all his movies. That's him. That's definitely him." Her teenage son squinted through his phone camera, zooming in. "Holy, it is him. Mom, that's actually Steven Seagal." Within seconds, whispers turned into a wave of recognition. "That's Steven Seagal. No way he's here. Why would he be at this diner? Bro, that guy is a martial arts legend. He could destroy that biker in 2 seconds." But the bikers, they remained clueless. Blonde biker scoffed loudly, mistaking the whispers for simple excitement. "Oh look, people are impressed by me," he bragged, puffing his chest. "They know who the boss is." His crew laughed, but the laughter felt nervous, thin, like even they sensed the shift happening around them. The crowd was no longer watching a bully bother a stranger. They were watching a reckless man poke a lion. Stephen didn't acknowledge the comments or the murmurs. He didn't brag, didn't smile, didn't reveal anything. Instead, he simply closed his torn shirt a little and took one small step back. "I told you," he said calmly, "let this go." But Blonde biker only heard what his pride allowed him to hear. He stepped forward again, even more aggressively. "Let it go." "Nah, old man. You don't get to walk out after disrespecting me." Stephen tilted his head slightly, studying him, not with fear, not with anger, but with a sense of sadness, like he was watching someone walk into a fire willingly. One of the younger bikers, the one with tattoos on his neck, scratched his head and muttered under his breath, "Dude, people keep saying his name." But Blonde biker shut him up with a glare. "What name?" he snapped. Before tattooed biker could answer, an elderly trucker stepped forward. The man's voice trembled, not out of fear, but out of awe. "Son, do you even know who you're messing with?" Blonde biker smirked arrogantly. "Yeah, some washed-up old man." The trucker shook his head slowly. "That man is Steven Seagal, one of the most dangerous martial artists alive. A hush fell across the crowd. The bikers froze, except for Blonde Biker, who barked out a laugh so loud it felt forced. "Oh, come on," he scoffed. "You're telling me this guy is some ninja superstar?" The crowd stared at him like he was insane. One woman replied, "Yes, he is." A man added, "Just Google him." Another whispered, "He can break your arm before you blink." Phones came up, people began searching, showing each other pictures of Steven in movies, interviews, martial arts demonstrations. Everything matched: the eyes, the stance, the calmness. Blonde Biker's smirk began to falter, not completely, but just enough for a flicker of doubt to crack through. He looked at Steven again, studying his face more carefully this time. The sharp jawline, the unshaken expression, the quiet confidence, the posture of someone completely in control. Steven, meanwhile, remained utterly still. Not boasting, not flexing, not revealing anything. Just waiting. Waiting for the biker to make a better choice. But pride, oh, pride is a loud enemy. Blonde Biker straightened up and said loudly, "Even if he is Steven Seagal, what? He's old now. I'm not scared of some old action hero." A collective gasp spread through the crowd. Even Tattooed Biker whispered urgently, "Bro, stop. Seriously, stop. This is not the guy to mess with." But his leader refused. To him, backing down in front of a crowd was worse than any risk. Worse than any truth. Worse than any pain. Steven finally spoke again, calm, controlled, measured. "I'm giving you one last chance. Walk away." Blonde Biker leaned in so close their noses almost touched. "Or what?" he hissed. "You gonna break my arm like in your movies?" Steven blinked slowly. "No," he said. "I don't break arms for ego. Only for protection." His voice was so steady, so sure, that people felt it in their bones. Blonde Biker laughed, but the laughter cracked. Fear was creeping in, no matter how he tried to hide it. "Protection from what?" he yelled. Steven looked down at the biker's hand, which was now balled into a fist, pressed against Steven's chest again. He lifted his eyes. "From your next mistake." The crowd froze. The air tightened. Everyone knew. The last chance had just ended. And whatever happened next would be the moment no one there would ever forget. For a long moment, the world seemed to stop. The biker's fist rested against Steven's chest, trembling ever so slightly. Not from Steven's touch, but from something deeper. Something he didn't understand yet. Silence stretched across the parking lot like a rope pulled tight. Then Steven inhaled slowly, and exhaled even slower. "That's enough," he said quietly. But unlike before, this time his voice wasn't just calm. It carried weight, authority, gravity. The kind of tone that comes from someone who has faced real danger, real violence, real war, and walked out alive every time. Blonde Biker forced a laugh, trying to hide the growing fear in his eyes. "You keep saying that," he scoffed, "but you haven't done anything." Steven tilted his head slightly. "I was hoping you'd stop before I had to." The biker took one step back, spreading his arms out dramatically for the cameras. "Oh, please," he shouted. "Look at this old guy. Talking like he's some warrior monk. Man, if you're so tough." He jabbed a finger toward Steven's face. "Why don't you do something?" Steven's eyes narrowed a fraction of an inch. The crowd could feel it. Something shifted. Like the air grew heavier. The waitress who had earlier stepped forward now covered her mouth with both hands. "Please," she whispered. "Don't push him again." But Blonde Biker either didn't hear her, or chose not to. He stepped close again, this time chest to chest, staring directly into Steven's eyes. "You're not gonna touch me," he said confidently. "You're scared." Steven shook his head. "No. I'm disciplined." The biker blinked, confused. "What does that even?" Steven raised his voice just a little, so everyone could hear. "Discipline means I don't hurt people unless I have to. Not even when they insult me. Not even when they rip my shirt. Not even when they try to provoke me." He paused. "But discipline has limits." The biker swallowed hard. Stephen continued, his voice steady as stone. You've crossed every line. So now, you're giving me no choice. The crowd leaned in. Blonde biker forced another laugh, even weaker than before. Oh yeah. What are you gonna do? Hit me? Break my nose? Show off your old movie tricks? He tapped Stephen's chest with 2 fingers. Tough guy. That was the final touch. Stephen spoke one last time. Quietly, almost gently. I warned you. More than once. Then it happened. But it didn't happen the way the biker expected. No dramatic wind-up. No loud shout. No fancy spinning kick. Just one smooth, almost invisible motion. Stephen's hand moved like a whisper. A tiny shift of his wrist. And in less than a second, he grabbed the biker's extended wrist, rotated it, and locked it down with precision so clean the biker didn't even realize what happened until his knees hit the ground. A sharp, choked cry escaped the biker's throat. What, stop. Stephen wasn't squeezing hard. He wasn't hurting him more than necessary. Just enough to immobilize him completely. The crowd gasped. Phones jerked upward as people tried to capture the moment. Blonde biker's face twisted in shock as he struggled to move. But couldn't. It felt like his own arm wasn't connected to his body anymore. Stephen leaned over him slightly. This is a joint lock, he explained calmly. It takes years to learn. Decades to master. And only a moment to end a fight. The biker shuddered in pain. Let go, he cried. Stephen shook his head. Not until you stop behaving like a child. The biker's ego shattered right there on the pavement. The remaining bikers took a hesitant step forward. But Stephen turned his head, eyes sharp as blades. Don't. They froze instantly. No one had ever said, don't, like that before. Quiet, calm. Yet powerful enough to pin grown men to the ground without touching them. One biker whispered, Dude. He wasn't lying. That really is Steven Seagal. The crowd murmured in awe. Stephen shifted his grip slightly, easing the pressure just enough for the biker to breathe, but not enough for him to move. You pushed me, Stephen said. You cornered me. You ripped my clothes. You blocked my bike. You mistook kindness for weakness. Blonde biker whimpered. Please. I am sorry. Stephen released the pressure, but kept the biker's wrist locked. I don't want to hurt you, he said softly. But if you raise your hand again, even once, you won't like what happens next. The biker nodded frantically. I won't. I won't. I'm done, I swear. Stephen slowly stood up, releasing him. The biker collapsed to the ground, clutching his wrist, gasping. Stephen stepped back, adjusting what was left of his torn shirt. He didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He didn't brag. He simply said, Respect isn't earned through shouting. It's earned through actions. The crowd erupted. But this was only the beginning of what was coming next. The biker lay on the pavement, clutching his wrist, gasping like the world had tilted beneath him. For the first time since the confrontation started, his bravado was gone, replaced by something raw, unfiltered, and undeniable. Fear. But it wasn't just fear of pain. It was fear of realization. Around him, the crowd began closing in, not aggressively, but with an energy that said, We all saw this. We all know exactly what just happened. The phones were up. Every angle was being recorded. Every breath, every cry, every word. One man in the front lifted his screen and shouted, Look. Look at this. It is him. He showed a picture of Steven Seagal from an old martial arts demonstration. Same face, same aura, same calm posture. The resemblance was crystal clear. Tattooed biker stared at the image, his jaw dropping. Bro, he's not some random guy. He's Steven Seagal. The Steven Seagal. Blonde biker's eyes widened in panic as he looked from the phone to Stephen, then back again. No way. He's just. But the truth couldn't be denied. The waitress stepped closer and whispered, I grew up watching his movies. That's him. The real him. Someone else added, And you attacked him. Blonde biker's voice broke. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Stephen didn't move closer. He just stood there, calm, composed, hands by his sides, breathing steady as if nothing had happened. His presence alone was enough. One of the older truck drivers walked up to Stephen, shaking his head in amazement. "Sir, that was incredible. Never seen anything like it in real life." Stephen nodded politely. "Thank you." Meanwhile, Blonde Biker was scrambling backward on the ground, trying to put distance between himself and the man he had just humiliated, insulted, and challenged. He lifted a trembling hand. Please. I didn't mean it. I was just messing around. I didn't know who you were." Stephen crouched down slightly, not threateningly, but like someone trying to bring a frightened child back to reality. "It never mattered who I was," he said softly. "You should treat everyone with respect. Not because of their name, but because it's the right thing to do." The biker swallowed hard, ashamed. Behind him, his gang stood frozen, suddenly aware of how quickly everything had flipped. Their leader, their loudest, toughest, most fearless member, was now reduced to begging on hot pavement. One of the bikers whispered to another, "Dude, we're lucky he didn't break our arms too." Another replied, "He didn't attack us. He only reacted after he was pushed too far." Stephen straightened up, dusting off his hands. "I don't fight people unless I have no choice," he said calmly. "That lock you felt was the gentlest one." The biker's eyes widened. "That was the gentle one." A ripple of nervous laughter moved through the crowd. Stephen nodded. "If it wasn't gentle, you wouldn't be moving your arm right now." Blonde Biker stared at his wrist, horrified and grateful at the same time. Tattooed Biker stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Sir, we're sorry. We didn't know. We shouldn't have." Stephen cut him off gently. "You don't need to apologize for his actions. But you stood with him. Next time, stand with what's right instead." Tattooed Biker lowered his head. "You're right." The crowd felt the shift too. Respect, real respect, was building around Stephen like a protective wall. Some people applauded softly. Others simply watched, humbled by his composure. Blonde Biker finally managed to get onto his knees. He looked up at Stephen, eyes watery. Please don't press charges. Don't get us arrested." Stephen shook his head slowly. "I'm not here to ruin anyone's life. I'm here to finish my meal and continue my ride." The biker blinked in disbelief. You're not gonna." "I don't punish people. Life does that on its own." The line hit harder than any strike ever could. Silence filled the parking lot again. Then a man from the crowd stepped forward, someone who had been recording the whole time. "You handled that better than anyone else would have," he said. "Most people would have fought, yelled, bragged, posted on social media, but you didn't." Stephen shrugged lightly. "Anger doesn't solve anything. Awareness does." Blonde Biker, shaking from embarrassment and adrenaline, whispered, "Why didn't you just beat me up?" Stephen looked at him with an expression that held no hatred, only wisdom. "Because teaching you something is better than hurting you." The biker lowered his head, defeated. "I learned. I swear I learned." Stephen nodded once. "I hope so." The tension that had once filled the parking lot with heat and danger now dissolved into something quieter. Something like reflection, regret, respect. But the moment wasn't over yet. Just as Stephen turned to leave, the distant sound of sirens began approaching, blurring in closer, growing louder by the second. The crowd turned toward the road. The biker gang froze. And Stephen lifted his torn shirt slightly, sighed, and said, "Looks like things just got more complicated." The real consequences were about to arrive. The wail of approaching sirens grew louder until 2 patrol cars pulled into the parking lot, tires crunching against gravel. The crowd stepped aside instinctively, forming a clear path as the officers emerged from their vehicles. They scanned the scene, Stephen standing calmly beside his motorcycle, the torn shirt hanging loosely from his shoulders, and the biker gang frozen in place like statues carved from pure fear. One of the officers approached Blonde Biker, who was still kneeling and clutching his wrist. "What's going on here?" the officer demanded. The biker opened his mouth, but nothing came out, just stuttering breaths and shameful silence. A bystander stepped forward. "Officer, it's all on camera," he said, lifting his phone. "These bikers started everything. They ripped his shirt, blocked his bike, tried to intimidate him, and he didn't fight back until they pushed him over the line." Another woman added, "He warned them so many times. He didn't even throw a punch. He just defended himself." The officers exchanged looks, realizing quickly who appeared to be the aggressors. Tattooed biker raised his hands, palms out, voice trembling. "We're sorry. We didn't mean to. It got out of control." The first officer looked at Stephen. "Sir, are you injured? Do you want to press charges?" Stephen shook his head. "No. I'm fine. Let them go." Blonde biker's head jerked up, eyes wide with disbelief. You're not going to press charges?" Stephen met his gaze with calm, steady eyes. "No. You've learned your lesson. That's enough." The officer frowned. "Are you sure? What they did is clearly assault." Stephen nodded once. "I'm sure." The officer exhaled slowly, turning toward the bikers. "Consider yourselves very lucky today." Blonde biker's shoulders slumped with relief, though guilt still weighed heavily on his expression. As the officer stepped aside to gather statements from the bystanders, the crowd moved toward Stephen, slow, respectful, almost reverent. A young man approached first. "Sir, that was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. You handled that with so much respect." Stephen shrugged lightly, almost uncomfortable with the praise. "There's no point in fighting if you can avoid it." A mother with her daughter placed a gentle hand on Stephen's arm. "You taught my child something today," she said gratefully. "That strength doesn't come from anger. It comes from control." Stephen offered a small, genuine smile. "I'm glad it helped." Meanwhile, blonde biker struggled to his feet. He looked utterly defeated, his pride crushed, his ego gone, his earlier confidence shattered into dust. He swallowed hard, stepped forward, and spoke with a shaky voice that barely carried. "Sir, I'm sorry. Truly. I was stupid. I disrespected you. I disrespected everyone here. I don't know what I was trying to prove." Stephen looked at him with a calmness that felt like forgiveness itself. "You don't need to prove anything," he said. "You just need to grow." The biker blinked, surprised at the kindness. "I will," he whispered. "I swear I will." Stephen nodded slightly, then turned toward his motorcycle. But when he reached for the handlebars, he noticed something. People were still recording. Not out of disrespect, but out of admiration. "Sir," someone said from the crowd, "that video is going to go viral like wildfire. The whole world needs to see how you handled this." Stephen paused. "I didn't do it to go viral," he said softly. "I did it because someone had to stay calm." The crowd understood. Later that evening, the videos hit social media. Within hours, millions of views. Within a day, international headlines. Biker attacks Steven Seagal, instantly regrets it. Legend shows what real discipline looks like. Respect is strength. Seagal teaches biker a life lesson. Comment sections flooded with messages. Respect. This is how a real man handles conflict. He didn't humiliate anyone, he educated them. Strength isn't violence. Strength is control. Blonde biker himself released a public apology, red eyes, voice trembling, saying the incident changed him forever. And as the video spread worldwide, one message echoed louder than everything else. If you believe no one should be judged by appearance, type respect in the comments. And millions did.